Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Home Buying Secrets Podcast, sponsored by Homestocks.com. Today, let's talk about what do people think about, or what people should think about before they even embark on this journey of purchasing what very likely is the biggest financial decision or asset of their lives. I am joined once again today by Jason and Frank. How are you guys doing this morning?
Doing great. Good morning.
Good morning. Doing pretty good. Nice to be here.
All right, so I'll go first because a lot of our audience that we're targeting are FANG employees like myself. And a big thing FANG employees like myself think about is, hey, when should I sell my stock? When should I sell my Amazon, Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Microsoft stock? Is it gonna always go up and to the right like it has been the last couple of years? So, I've been monitoring loosely what's going on, and a big word and topic that's going through the media and just around everywhere recently is inflation. And here are my 2 cents on inflation. Once you put $10 to $15 trillion into the economy, prices are going to go up. And whether it's a little bit, a medium amount, or a big amount. So inflation is prices going up. And everyone needs to reposition themselves for inflation, because when inflation goes up, I think tech stocks will be obliterated. Here's why. Prices go up, government sees prices go up, so they want to raise interest rates. The cost of borrowing goes up, so less money is being spent. The whole goal is to keep us in the economy more restrained when you do that. So if you're an investor, because let's think about it, the people moving the markets is not like Joe Schmo like me. You're talking about huge asset managers, right? And when they think about inflation, they're going to start thinking about how much money they make into the future, right? When you discount those dollars, there's less of those dollars if the interest rates goes up. So then they're going to start rebalancing their portfolios to make sure they have more dollars today, not 10 years from now. And all that puts pressure on tech stock because they're valued on multi-year discounted cash flows. So you see more individuals and professionals, organizations moving things to like savings accounts, bonds, physical and real assets, of which a home is one. And all of that's going to get worked out in the economy, right? So that's super complicated, but that's generally how I think about things. And that's why I'm interested in buying a home, because I saw this coming over many years. I didn't know it was 2019 or 2020 or 2021, but I've been preparing myself for this moment, and I think we are there. Federal Reserve Chairman just mentioned potentially raising interest rates in 2022. So that's what I think about as like a buyer who happens to be working at a tech company. So you guys deal with a lot more home buyers and people who refinance. Maybe let's start off with Jason. What should a first-time home buyer or someone who's maybe buying a second home think about before they get into all of this?
I think people should try to keep it as simple as possible, right? You can kind of dive into all of those, macroeconomic policies and things like that. But at the end of the day, I think people should just look at their personal finances. You could try to time the market. You could try to, inflation's at its peak and stock market valuations are at their highest and, all of that stuff. But seriously, at the end of the day, I think people just need to take a look at their personal finances. Do you have a good job? Can you afford a payment? Are you stable, right? Because that's the main difference with renting a place. There's always the opportunity to move out, get roommates, and not that you can't have roommates when you own a home. I mean, that's actually some strategies that people will take on, but there's a lot more flexibility when you are renting, and there's a lot less surprises, right? You can get hit with bigger ticket items on homes that can cost a lot of money, maintenance that people didn't really foresee. So you just have you got less wiggle room. So you want to make sure that you're set up, you're stable, and at the end of the day, you're going to have to live somewhere. So, buying a place is definitely a good start.
Frank, what about you?
Yeah, I agree. Excuse me, Jason pretty much took my whole spiel right there. But it's kind of like you always got, you're either gonna be paying rent or you're gonna be paying a mortgage somewhere. You need a house, roof over your head. So start taking advantage of the small tax break you get. build equity, and you only really lose if you sell at a down period. So don't try to be a pro and think you're going to make a whole bunch of equity in the next year, 2 years, time something. If it's your primary house, buy it, keep it for 7 to 10 years, and you'll be fine. So that's the way I look at it and what I tell my clients.
You guys make a good point. So Frank, you're saying, don't try to be a pro. Jason, you're saying don't overthink it. And I think many people want to go down that route, but a lot of these, as I say, our audience is like, like crypto guys or people or FANG employees. They love to overthink. They love to min max. Like, hey, how do I get this like 0.1% benefit? This is a philosophy, I think, which is great to share. But if we had to get into some of the, let's just say some of the benefits of home ownership or some of the strategies, Jason, as you talked about, kind of like renting and sharing, what are some of them? And maybe I can share a story first, coming from the military, right? Because I think, especially, for a lot of veterans or current service members, they're frankly living in lower cost of living areas, right, next to the base. It's not going to be like $1 million home in Orange County because, those of us who live in SoCal, we're so used to these like really high real estate prices. But I've got lots of friends, and I still know a lot of people in the military. Houses in their neighborhoods could cost like 200,000, 300,000, very affordable even on a military salary. And we know a guy, Devin, and what Devin did was he bought a house every time he went to a different base. And it is a process to buy a house property, right? But he found the right team, and he found roommates, his buddies, who basically helped pay for his mortgage. And it was a win-win for everyone because they had to pay less than they would on a market rent. They got to live together because they're friends, and they could work out together or whatnot. And he got most of his mortgage covered. That seems to be like a pretty common strategy, at least in the military. Have you guys heard of any other strategies or any other like benefits, obvious or less obvious, for buying a home?
Yeah, I think, there's not a ton of strategies, I would say, when it comes to buying a primary residence. There's a lot of different strategies when you get into buying like investment properties. That's where people really start to get creative. But when you're buying a primary residence, it's for the most part, the majority of people, it's going to be them and their family, right? So are you married? Do you have, a family? You're probably not going to be doing anything too crazy. You're going to find something affordable. You're going to find something in a good neighborhood. You're probably going to look for schools, things like that. That's kind of more in Frank's wheelhouse. Really, the only other strategy, and you kind of hit the nail on the head, John, is if you do have a little bit more flexibility, kind of like Devin's situation where he's in the military, he's moving around. That's an awesome opportunity when you have other friends, especially to go buy something, have roommates, and have them help make the payment for you. Especially in a situation like the military, you've got some really cool loan benefits. So you can get into a home without having to save up a ton of money. You can get really, really great interest rates, keep that payment down. And if you've got people you trust, especially that can move on in, they're going to have to go rent something else. So I'm sure they'd rather, have a place with their friends than, strangers. So that's a pretty good way to do it. In California, it's a little bit more difficult. Obviously, the amount that rent is going to cover compared to what you're paying on a property in California is not going to be nearly the same as something that you get in other places in the country. There are other markets that cash flow a lot harder. And so it's much easier. You can get somebody to get in there, pay the rent, and you can, potentially put yourself in a position where you're actually not paying anything out of pocket to own a home, at the end of the day. But in California, I think that's a little bit more difficult. I've heard of it happening. So not to say that it's impossible, but you could still find somebody to help offset, a majority of the payment, make your living situation very, very affordable. And at the end of the day, you're reaping all of the benefits. You get the tax benefits, you get the appreciation. They're helping you pay down your mortgage. You get a lot of good stuff, for a fraction of the cost.
Yeah, and strategy-wise, obviously, I think it has a lot to do with where you're at in your life. When I bought my first house, single guy, I actually bought a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, and rented the other 3 rooms out to my buddies. We were in our early 20s, so it was kind of a fraternity type of thing. Now, wife and 2 kids probably aren't going to have my buddies renting rooms out. It's just where we're at. But a good opportunity would be to potentially, even if you have found maybe a duplex or a triplex or 4 units, you can buy that. Now you get into it, and if you live in the property, if it's your primary, you get a better interest rate versus if it's an investment. So you can potentially buy a duplex, buy a triplex, buy some units, get an owner occupied rate, have your family live in one and rent the other ones out. And then whenever point you want more room, you want a bigger yard, you want to move to a different part of town, your family grows, move somebody into your unit and go and buy another property, and you still have to get to keep that killer interest rate.
I want to follow up on one thing Jason said and then ask you another question. So let's talk about this like moving around strategy. What is the actual rule? Because I heard something about you need to like live in your primary residence for at least a year. Is there like a federal law? Like what is this, Jason?
Yeah, so it's not so much a federal law as it is, basically the contract that you're signing. So when you're signing documents, for a loan on a primary residence, you are stating that you intend to occupy the home for a minimum of 12 months. So yeah, I mean, if you're moving every single year, you can theoretically go ahead and buy a primary residence every single year, take advantage of the lower interest rates, lower down payment options, all of those things. And as long as you occupy for 12 months, then, you've satisfied your obligation to the lender. And at that point, move out, buy another one, kind of rinse and repeat. If you don't live there the full 12 months, it's, I've seen it happen a couple different ways, right? Because there's no hard rule. You intend to occupy it, and sometimes, even the best of intentions change. So I've seen people that will be in a place for 6 months, and then all of a sudden their dream home comes on the market, and they want to upgrade. Something happens with the family. Maybe they have a child, and they want parents to move in, and they need a bigger home. There's all sorts of different extenuating circumstances, and so it's not a 100% set in stone rule. There are different opportunities and circumstances where I've seen people move out and they, don't really run into any issues. But at the same time, I've seen it go the opposite way. I had one client who just finished up a refinance and then a month later was submitting offers on a brand new primary residence. And as soon as that loan got put into underwriting, the underwriter came back and said, yeah, hey, this is great. Your loan, it will be approved. But in order for that to happen, that house that you just refinanced as a primary residence, you've got to redo that as an investment property and take a higher interest rate on it. So yeah, that's kind of the risk you run. Technically, you are signing that you're going to live there for that 12 months. So theoretically, the lender also could call that note due. I've never seen it gone to that extreme before, but I'm sure that it's happened. Especially if there's blatant abuse of it.
I want to add two kind of like sound bites / stories to upsides, and then I want to talk about some downsides because people don't think about that enough. So two of the other upsides, one is a quote from a former real estate professor I had, John Swire, and he says something along the lines of his father purchased his first home for maybe $100,000, and then John Swire purchased his first home for roughly $1 million, and he expects that his son will buy his first home for something like 2 million or above. So it's good to just have that mindset, because trying to time the market or wait for the right thing, it's hard. But over the course of things, there's just going to be growth in price. And that's something people need to get used to. The second upside, which I love thinking about this way, is when you're buying a home, usually you're getting a loan. So you are borrowing today's money at today's value, and you're repaying it with future money. Usually inflation is not zero. It's going to be, it could be negative, but usually it's like positive, right? Positive inflation. Even if we're not talking about hyperinflation, it's kind of nice that you're using cheaper money, future money, to pay for what you're borrowing today. Maybe it's not that big of a deal, but I love thinking about that concept. I think you guys made it pretty clear about some of the upsides and some of the strategies of home owning, which for primary residence sounds like there really isn't much. You just have to live there and you're doing it for a specific purpose. Now, I really want to get into some of the downsides because this is a big move. And, I think our part of what our show is about is helping people make the best informed decision. And I think homeownership isn't right for everyone. It's probably wrong for a lot of people. So maybe Frank or Jason, you guys can talk about some of the downsides you've seen, common misconceptions perhaps of what it's like to own a home.
Well, you're responsible for everything. Something breaks, you don't just email or call your landlord and tell them to fix it. That's on you. So there's definitely the costs involved with and obviously costs involved with maintaining the property. If you don't do repairs and keep up, even like say on the exterior, then you'll have a ton of what's called deferred maintenance, and then at some point have to deal with it. Just imagine if you have a poor roof, and you need to put a new one on and you ignore it, and then the water gets in the attic and then it turns to mold, and it starts compounding there pretty quickly. So definitely, keeping up maintenance, things along that nature, it's your responsibility. Probably the biggest complaint that I get from clients is more of people that buy their first house, or they live in a homeowners association. Not every single time, but usually after 4, 5, 6 years, the people are over the HOA. They're tired of, say, the HOA fees going up, or special assessments, or this particular area of the property is not getting fixed, and they said that they were going to do it. That's a big motivation factor that I get from clients that are in an HOA. They're tired of paying. They reference it as, I'm tired of throwing my money away. I want to sell this place and I want to go buy myself a single family detached home with a yard. I saw a ton of that, especially this last 2 years, because of COVID, with everybody staying home, people living in apartments, or say not renting apartments, but owning condos, and they were stuck at home and they wanted more room. And so they called me and we sold their condo and they bought a house with a yard. Some of them even bought some place with a pool, and they were so pumped. So those are a couple negative things that I come across. Costs, you're the person that's got to pay for everything, and then HOAs not panning out how you expect them to.
I have a follow-up, and then I'll turn it over to Jason. You make a good point, Frank, because I have to say I am not a handyman, and I rented for most of my life. And I am that guy. I am that guy who calls the super or the building maintenance to fix a light bulb. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I hate it. I'm partially ashamed. But
I'm right there with you.
Oh, okay. I mean, sometimes they do more. I guess like they do some like regrouting something. I'm like, okay, that looks theoretically doable. But yeah, I feel like if people can pick up some handyman skills, watching YouTube videos, it's not a bad thing. Now that I'm in my girlfriend's condo and she owns it, I'm fixing like shower heads, I'm fixing like these like minor things. It's not that hard if you really just get down to it. You just need some basic tools. So how about you, Jason? Any common downsides or maybe things that people, first-time home buyers, don't expect and then they complain about afterwards?
The majority of complaints and stuff on my end, and obviously I'm on the finance end, so I usually hear the finance side of it. And really, I think it's, for me, the thing I see is just people rushing into something that they're not quite ready for. Especially right now, we saw this back in like 2005, 6, 7, 8. Buying a home was the hot item. It was the thing to do. And right now, I feel like we're headed back into that. I have not had so many people reach out recently, that are all looking, hey, I've got to buy a home. Tell me about buying a home. Like, everybody I talk to now is looking at buying a home, where even 2 years ago, that really wasn't the case. And so I think people can get kind of caught up in that mad rush of, hey, everybody's doing this, I should be doing this too. Interest rates are low now, supposedly the time, let's do this. And you just don't want to force it, right? I mean, you're signing up for a major payment for the next 30 years of your life. And it's okay if you're not ready just yet. At some point in the future, I'm sure that you will be, so you don't have to force it now. So that's the biggest thing. When I come across people that the thing they want to buy is over and above what they can, afford on paper. And then we got to come up with creative ways to get them into it, and, figure out how to pay off other bills and drive down debt ratios and things like that. That's usually a sign to me. The big one I see is down payment. When they, don't have a big enough down payment, they're trying to say, hey, what's the absolute minimum down payment I can put down? I might be able to get to that. you got to recognize not only with the down payment, but you've got closing costs. And then after that, you're going to want to furnish that place. And I think that's one thing that people oftentimes forget. And I see a lot of times with my first time home buyers, because we'll connect, and especially in the last couple of years, interest rates have been trending down. So, I'll be in contact with them. They'll hear interest rates have gone down. We'll talk about reducing their payment after the fact, by refinancing into a lower interest rate. And then I pull their credit and I find, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 of credit cards, drove their scores down, and say, hey, what happened? Like, oh, well, when I moved in, I didn't realize that it was so expensive. I had to, buy movers. I had to buy furniture. I wanted to do this. I remodeled that. And, next thing you know, they're just, clinging to dear life with tons and tons of bills. So I think that's the biggest thing, is you just want to make sure that it is the time, you're ready for it, and not the time in the sense of where are we at in the economy, but more the time in where are you at in your personal finance journey.
That's such a good point. I feel like I've underestimated my financial position by maybe 15 to 20%. Because now that I'm really in it, and I'm lucky in some aspects because I'm buying a new construction, so less worry about the fixing of things. But I just thought about this. I've been living in my tiny, generally speaking, tiny LA apartments where I've got one bedroom and maybe one living room full of stuff that that I've shared with a roommate or whatnot. And now I'm going to move into a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. I don't even have enough furniture. And when I start looking at furniture, I just haven't shopped for furniture in a while. And I started looking around. Furniture gets crazy. It's usually it's in the thousands of dollars, right? And you can really get luxurious with things. So I think in future episodes of this show, we're going to cover me trying to build a plan on how to furnish a place, and just how long it takes, and how to budget money. Because another thing, let's talk about what we call W-2 employees, right? Like the people who work at these tech companies, is that you're always trying to maximize your taxes. So what I do a lot is, hey, how do I make sure I get my 19,500 for my 401k, of which my company matches some, and some people never know when they're going to leave the company or stay with the company, so you want to front load that into from your paycheck. So earlier in the year, your paycheck might take a hit because of that. Now there's lots of options about HSAs. So I'm really looking to that as well. So there's some payments there, out of pocket payments, because you want to take some of that money to invest. And then some companies offer backdoor Roth 401ks. So there's just so much going on, and that's to add a mortgage on top, and if it's not a new property, maintenance, fixing the roof. I wouldn't even know where to get started. And then furnishing. I think you guys are totally spot on. It's really a lot to take in, and it's okay to slow down and just get yourself ready for this moment.
One thing I'll just plug in there, just to clear things up. So depending on your agent, I would hope that your agent, is going to be honest with you guys and go through the inspections and stuff. But with my clients, we go and do our inspections on a property. Whether they get fixed in escrow or not, I just want to make it clear to my clients, hey, look, this is what you guys are buying. That are there roof issues? Are there plumbing issues? Are there electrical issues? So if you got a decent inspector and a good agent, you're not just going to be buying this property blind. You know what I mean? And not every client calls me and says, hey, the roof screwed up, because hopefully we know, right, what the ages are on the different system, what needs to be fixed right away. But still, being a homeowner, things come up. So I don't get too many complaints on that. I'll be honest. Probably the one that I get the most is oh, my neighbors light off fireworks, for 2 weeks before 4th of July and drive my dogs and cats crazy. That's probably the most common one, as far as Frank, the sprinklers don't work in the back. It's well, come on, you're going to have to fix some stuff.
One thing, going back to this whole being ready and getting prepared stage, just the background story is Chase introduced me to Frank. And Frank, I don't know if you remember, but I was just checking through my emails. The first time I contacted you about, at the time, seriously buying a property was 2017.
Yeah.
So it was over 4 years ago, and it really took me 4 years. It's no surprise, the last 4 years I worked at Amazon, so I got myself more financially stable, um, and the fact, and just the relationship it takes, right? I mean, you could be working with a client from maybe not everyone, hopefully not everyone's 4 years, because then it's gonna be tough for you, but. I think it's great, like you as your philosophy. You've never been pushy with me at all. You're just like, hey, when you're ready, let's talk. And you're always available. What made you adopt that philosophy? Because I think you guys deal with lots of customers, and I bet you, I don't know what percentage you could guess that are just not ready, and you just keep them, you keep them in the wings until they are.
You know what? Just maybe like pushy bosses in the past, or just like, I don't know. You go shop, whether it's a car or you're looking to buy, camping equipment, whatever it is. Like, you hate that salesman guy that's just like standing there like, hey, I mean, don't get me wrong, if you have questions, you need help, yeah, but I just never wanted to be a sales, like a pushy salesman. It seems sleazy to me. So it was always like, inform my clients. I got all the information. Like, when you're ready, you're ready. Just kind of like you said, John. Not all my clients are 4 or 5 years, but I got a ton of them, especially people that, oh, Frank, it's prices are too high. We want to wait till they come. I mean, I have tons of 2016, 2017, people were convinced the market had peaked, right? We'd been on a run for 5 or 6, 7 years. I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait. 2 years goes by, 3 years. Now it's like, okay, we're not going to be able to time this thing. Frank was right. We've saved up another year or two worth of down payment. Let's pull the trigger. And, they bought in 2019, and now the house is worth, $100,000 more than it was. I mean, it's just, I go on and on about stories, but yeah, I have lots of clients, and it's just kind of just keep nurturing them, stay in contact, be there to answer the questions. When they're ready, they're ready.
And how about you, Jason? I feel like you're probably in the same boat, because you get to see a lot of people's finances, and how quickly are you able to give people some, maybe like a reality check, or some advice once they show you the initial information?
Yeah, I give quite a few reality checks. I mean, it's all over the map, right? You get some people who are very confident and secure in their finances. They've been, planning and doing this forever. They know exactly how much money they can spend, and they've really done a ton of research. Sometimes too much research, right? To the point where they think they need to save up a 20% down payment, and so they'll hold off way too long. But yeah, I get it a ton on the other end, where people, especially first-time home buyers, because they're the ones who aren't really sure what things actually look like. They'll do a little bit of research online, and they'll hear about, I can put a 3% down payment down, so I just need to save up a couple bucks and I'll be good to go. And ran into this last week, with somebody. I've got a great credit score, Jason. It's close to 800. I could put down some money, but the low down payment would probably be better. I don't really have any other bills, so, except for a car payment. So I think this is perfect. This is the time. We pull credit. It's 650, which is almost unlendable, especially if you're trying to put a low down payment down. That little car payment was $767 a month, which is, a ton of purchasing power. And it's about $300,000 or so worth of a loan, 250 to 300. So it turned out it just wasn't the time. The 3% down payment, they barely met the 3%. But then I said, what about the closing costs on top of that? And the closing costs, what are you talking about? And again, we didn't even talk about post move, the cost of the move, financing, furniture, and all the things that come along with it. So come across it all the time. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I prefer that somebody comes and talks to me earlier rather than later, because we can course correct, right? It was really easy to say, hey, you thought your credit score was 800. It's not anywhere close to that. So here are some different things that you can do, because you've still got a little bit of money to save up. So while you're saving that money, why don't you go out and get a credit card? This person actually didn't even have a credit card. The auto loan was the only piece of credit they had. And then student loans. So hey, why don't you go get a credit card? Throw your utility bill on that and auto pay it every single month, so that you'll start building credit, because you've got time. So I would much rather talk to those clients to kind of set them up, and so we can make sure that they have a seamless transition into purchasing, rather than the people that come to me last second and say, hey, I just put an offer in on a place and we got it accepted. What do we do now? And we've got to just we got to kind of scramble to get everything, or put our ducks in order. We got to do rapid rescores to get credit scores fixed. Look at paying off credit cards, all sorts of different things. I much prefer a longer runway so that we can actually put together a plan.
That's a great summary. And frankly, I think to summarize this episode, it sounds like this is a big financial decision. There's a lot of research you can do. Do your homework, but also don't overthink it. Frankly, you just need to be prepared. And you could either get prepared by yourself, you could contact, Jason, Frank, or whoever else you want to work with, but contact someone, talk to a professional. And maybe, for me, it took 4 years for me to get to the place where I was ready for it. And for some other people, it could be a couple months or it could be a year. But homework is your best friend. Any closing comments from either of you guys?
Yeah, I guess if I'm trying to, just think of some high level steps, I guess there's three main ones that I think about. Number one, know your finances. That's going to be the biggest thing. Number two, reach out to a professional, especially in today's generation. Nobody wants to talk to anybody. So I get so many clients, and John, I mean, the type of people we're talking about right now, you are the prototype of the person who's going to sit there and over research. You're going to be on Google all night long, checking out, all sorts of different things. And that's the generation, especially of first-time home buyers. We've been groomed to, sit there and look at Amazon reviews and, not call anybody for help and do everything online. And I see so many people that just spend hours and hours and hours. If you reach out to somebody that knows what they're doing, all of those hours of research can literally be summed up in a couple minutes. Not to mention, there is so much information online that is blatantly incorrect. It's crazy, and we can get into some examples at a different point. But in my industry, there's a whole bankers versus brokers thing. Bankers have a lot of money, so if you go online, you're going to see a lot of paid ads, a lot of paid influencing, and just information that is not anywhere remotely correct. And it all comes down to money. And I think that's one thing that I never realized before I was really, really deep into this, is just how much money can change the influence of everything that you actually think. So yeah, talk to somebody. It takes 5 minutes to talk to somebody, but the biggest thing is you want to just make sure that the person you're talking to is somebody that you trust, because it can also go the other way. There's bad information online, but there's also bad information from somebody that doesn't have your best interests at heart. So I'd say that's kind of number two, is just reach out and talk to a trusted source. And number three, don't try to time the market. I'm super guilty of this myself, and I know so many people are. I remember when the pandemic first hit, there was a meme going around of, I don't even know who he is, but it's a guy who's like behind a tree and he's rubbing his hands, and it was millennials saying like, this is the time, because they've been waiting for the market to crash, because we all saw 2008 happen, and we're all sitting back waiting for 2020 to be the same thing. And that's when we go in, and we all got burned, myself included. The house that I was looking at and still am looking at, it's gone up about 20% since I originally started looking at it. Frank knows I made him come and walk it with me. And yeah, I mean, you try to time the market, you get burned. Just make sure you're in a good financial position. And, the one thing I look back at is, go show me somebody who bought a house in 1979 that overpaid for it. You're not going to find it. Show me somebody that bought a house in 99 that overpaid for it. You're not going to find it. You're getting to the point where somebody that bought a house in 2007 when the market was at the tip of the top, you're not even going to find somebody that overpaid in that market, because like you said, John, inflation happens. Money is, purchasing power is constantly going down. I know my parents constantly talk about, buying gas for 25 cents a gallon and a nickel for a Snickers bar or whatever. Prices go up over time. And if you just get into something when you're ready for it, and as long as you can hold on and withstand, maybe the first few years, prices might go down, you might hit a recession in there. But once you can kind of get out of that initial time period, you're always going to look back and be like, oh my gosh, I should have bought the whole block.
Yeah, I mean,
Anything for me, Frank?
Yeah, Jason pretty much nailed it all. I think what does the saying go? Paralysis by analysis. I mean, I've seen so many people that want to time the market, and then that 3 or 4 year period, basically what pushes them is they're like, I can't live with my parents anymore, or I'm so sick of my roommates, like I just got to pull the trigger. And they finally pull the trigger, they buy a house, they're like, man, I should have done this 3 or 4 years ago. I shouldn't have sat there and just overanalyze and try to time the market, because it's I don't know, it seems impossible to me.
Well, thanks, guys. We covered a lot of good topics today, and we'll see you all on on the next week on another episode of Home Buying Secrets.
See you on the other side.